Every 3 months, we meet here to discuss the situation in the Middle East. And as I'm sure will happen today as well, the members of this body will choose to talk about Israel despite the horrific events that take place in the region. Since our last meeting, Erdogan has invaded northern Syria and caused instability in the region. As shocking as Erdogan's recent aggression is, it should come as no surprise. For years now, Erdogan has been destabilizing the region through violence and supporting terror organizations. Erdogan is dragging Turkey down a dangerous neo-Ottoman imperialist path. He threatens journalists, persecutes religious minorities, and promotes anti-Semitism. It was not enough for Erdogan to persecute the Kurdish citizens of his own country. He now sends his troops to massacre Kurdish people in Syria as well. He is responsible for the death of many innocent people and for the displacement of tens of thousands. His violence in Syria also resulted in the strengthening of ISIS. While he was busy murdering those who have helped keep the world safe from the threats of ISIS, he allowed ISIS members to break out of prison and subject the world to future attacks. This too should come as no surprise, as Erdogan has a long history of supporting terror. Erdogan has granted Hamas, a terror organization, political and financial support. He has allowed it to continue to build its leadership and infrastructure on Turkish soil. He has turned Turkey into a safe haven for Hamas terrorists and a financial center for funneling money to subsidize terror attacks. Erdogan's Turkey shows no moral or human restraint toward the Kurdish people. Erdogan has turned Turkey into a regional hub for terrorism. As Erdogan expands his terror campaign into Syria, the UN Security Council focuses on Israel. It is a disgrace to this body's mandate that this council continues to target Israel instead of the atrocities performed by Erdogan. Recycling old arguments over and over against Israel instead of focusing on the devastation caused by Erdogan as we sit here today will not save the lives of the Kurdish people. Israel warns against the ethnic cleansing of the Kurds and calls upon the international community to take action and provide aid to the Kurdish people. Madam President, unfortunately, Erdogan's support of non-state terror organizations does not stand alone. For years, the region has experienced the growing influence of such organizations, and they now hold a substantial role in shaping the reality of the Middle East. These terror organizations have been able to grow and act in an increasingly bold manner because they have been backed by countries. It is no secret that some in the region wish to pursue policies and create capabilities which risk the international community. In some cases, countries outright defy the international community and pursue their capabilities, as we have seen with Iran's continued development of its nuclear and ballistic missile programs. However, in other cases, these countries wish to further their dangerous ambitions without appearing responsible. That is why Turkey supports Hamas and carelessly strengthens ISIS. That is why Iran has formed militias. The Iranian regime, whose nuclear ambitions represent the biggest threat to world peace, uses organizations as proxies to further its dangerous plans. The organizations are doing its dirty work and granting Iran a form of plausible deniability. These organizations have multiplied and spread like a dangerous virus. They are now present in Syria, Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, Gaza, the Sinai Peninsula, Libya, and other locations. For example, El-Ashad al-Sha'abi Shia militias have long stopped focusing on fighting against ISIS and have since, under Iranian influence, been challenging the stability of Iraq. The militia's stronghold on the Iraqi-Syrian border, which serves as a crucial part of the Iranian land bridge through the Middle East, poses a threat to the security of the citizens of Iraq and to the stability of its government. In Syria, ISIS has recently been strengthened by Erdogan's attack on the Kurds in northern Syria, and it continues to pose a threat to peace and stability in the region. Hezbollah continues to strengthen its hold in western Syria and to arm itself in Lebanon. The Ansar Allah Houthis continue to be a source of violence, both in Yemen and the rest of the region, as we recently witnessed in Saudi Arabia. In Gaza, Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad continue to target innocent civilians on both sides of the border and defy efforts made by parties in the region to bring the violence to an end. Madam President, these terrorist organizations do not all share the same ideology, and they differ in their perverted interpretation of religious texts. But they all share one main goal: to rid the region of nation-states and inaugurate a single religious leadership for the world. These organizations undermine the sovereignty of states, they disregard the rights of citizens, and they cause instability. They don't believe in women's rights, in rights for the LGBT community, in freedom of religion. These organizations have been using brutal force against civilian populations to pursue their agendas. They have been murdering and raping. They have been looting towns and using children as soldiers and human shields. The willingness to do whatever it takes is dangerous when it is a plea of one party to a conflict. But when many parties act this way in a region that is already volatile, the consequences can be and have been horrific. These are the actors that are now hold a substantial role in shaping the reality of the Middle East. Madam President, many of these organizations have set camp on Israel's borders. Up north, in Lebanon, Hezbollah. In Syria, Iranian militias and Hezbollah. In Gaza, Hamas and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad. In the Sinai Peninsula, ISIS. Israel will continue to do all that is in its power to defeat these organizations and keep our civilians safe. However, it is not only the safety and well-being of one country that is on the line, or even that one region. The lack of stability has grave consequences for the entire international community. Madam President, the recent Iranian attacks on Saudi Arabia, for which it got the Houthis to claim responsibility, did not only cause unrest in the region, it affected the world economy as well. The price of oil jumped after the attacks on the oil facilities. Consumers worldwide bore the literal cost of the harm to the global supply of crude oil. The non-state terror organizations in the region act in ways that are dangerous to the world economy, and their effects are felt far beyond the region. The economy is not the only way in which these organizations affect the international community. When citizens are persecuted in their own homes and are terrorized by these organizations, they don't stay. They seek to flee as far as they can, and they become refugees. Sometimes they stay in the Middle East, but as we have seen in recent years, many make their way to Europe. By the end of 2016, nearly 5.2 million refugees and migrants reached European shores after enduring agonized journeys from Syria, Iraq, and other countries. Unfortunately, many more did not manage to reach the shores. In 2018, more than 138,000 people risked their lives trying to reach Europe by sea. More than 2,000 of them drowned. 3 million people have been forced to flee their homes in Yemen because of increased violence. Many flee to neighboring countries such as Saudi Arabia, Djibouti, and Ethiopia. The immigration crisis is a direct result of the growing power of non-state terrorist organizations in the region. The proxies of Iran and other terror-supporting states are forcing people out of their homes, leaving the rest of the world to take care of them. Madam President, this body was created to promote stability and safety in the world. However, the world in which this body was created, a world in which violence is between states, no longer exists. The international community is trying to win against new players using an old strategy in a game that has long evolved. If this body wishes to truly serve its mandate of promoting safety and stability, it must adapt itself to a world with non-state actors. For years, Israel has had to deal with non-state terrorist organizations that seek to destroy it. Through its experience, Israel has developed methods for dealing with them and looks to share these methods with the world. The international community must come together to return stability to the region by immediately taking the following 4 steps. First, we must all recognize all of these organizations for what they are, terrorist organizations. The international community must designate them as terrorist organizations and publicly condemn them and their actions. Second, we must prevent the funding of these organizations. This includes using our intelligence forces to find all sources of revenue that these organizations hold and cutting them off. This also means forcing regimes to stop providing funding to these organizations and applying more sanctions. Third, we must encourage the countries in which these terrorist organizations live to take action against them, and we must assist them in these efforts. And finally, if all else fails, we must take military action to stop these terror organizations. Israel congratulates our dear friends, the United States, for the recent successful operation. Al-Baghdadi, the leader of ISIS, posed a threat to the safety and security of the entire world. We thank the United States for making our world safer. The 4 steps I mentioned are not enough. If this body wants to serve its purpose of promoting safety and stability in the new world order, it must adjust. We must work together to promote new methods and forms of cooperation. Madam President, this Council was created to ensure the security and stability of its member states. These organizations represent the biggest threat to both security and stability. It is our human obligation to fight for the lives of innocent civilians. It is our moral obligation to fight for human rights for all. It is our mandated obligation to assure that nation-states are not held hostage by terror organizations and the countries that support them. I call upon you to join forces in fighting against this threat. Thank you.